Hi students, continue with the third video about solving ratio problem and apply it to the word problems. Before I get into the word problems, I'm going to talk about how we set up the equivalent fraction and solve for the unknown number. And in the first video, you can see that we have two proportionate fraction, equivalent fraction, 2/3 equal n over 12. And we want to find out what n on the top here is supposed to be. N is represented for an unknown number. We don't know, and we want to find out what is it? What is that number, right? So we know 2/3 equal n over 12. And by inspection, we know that if we multiply 3 by 4, we get to 12, right? So we say, okay, so 3 times 4 will be equivalent to 12. So therefore, on the top, we apply the rule of fraction. We have to time with 4, 2 times 4. And the n here, 2 times 4, will be equal 8. And then we find out n equal 8. Now, this is easy because the number is very small, 2/3 and n over 12. All of them are small number. And by inspection, we can use small number to guess, to make a guess. We say, okay, 3 times 4 equals 12. We know that. Now, anytime you have a proportionate two equivalent fractions set up this way, and you have known three number 2, 1, 2, 3. To find the fourth number here is not hard. All what you do is guessing, right? By what number we multiply to go to there. However, let's look at the number 2 question here. This is the big fraction. How you deal with guessing? How do you know what number you divide 450 down to what number to get 379? And you are unable to guess if the number are tricky like this, big number, or sometimes it could be a decimal number. For example, 3.79 over x equal 14.76 over 23.48. So let's say if I create a number complicated like this, even though I still know three number, 1, 2, 3, and I just have to find the 4 number unknown down here. But I cannot guess. I cannot guess what time that to get to that, or what divide to what to get to that in case of tricky numbers. And therefore, let's ignore the first video about method of guessing and inspection, right? Because this only works for the easy number, the small number. But this technique to solve is not working for the big number like this, or decimal like this, right? So therefore, we learn math to know that if we learn a technical mathematics to solve, then we can solve any number. Doesn't matter how tricky the numbers are, okay? And that method, but when you solve the unknown number in the ratio, make sure you have to know three number, 1, 2, 3. And you only have to find out one unknown. If you have two unknown, let's say if you don't know this number as well, so you have two unknown number, let's say like this, x over y equal 1,200 over 379. If you have two unknown like that, there's no way you can solve. Forget it. You cannot. The only way you can solve ratio problem if given to you three number and ask for only one number, okay? Now, let's get back to what method we will solve in here. The method we're going to use, we call mathematics Technique. Okay. And that's mathematic technique to solve this kind of thing. We call a cross multiply, and divide. And it always works well if we know how to solve by using cross multiply, divide, cross multiply, divide. Okay. So to find x in here, all what you do is cross, multiply, and divide. So what numbers we can do cross multiply? The only two numbers we can do cross multiply is this one. 400 times with 1,200, the same as 1,200 times with 450. And the third one had to be divided, right? So this is how I set up in fraction. Now keep in mind, this setup is a little bit harder if you set up horizontally, right? So you can say, if the x represents a 1,200, if x represents a 1,200 number, and the 379 represent the number of 450, then what is the x here? Sorry, I should set up this way. Okay. So let's say 450, if 450 represent 379. If 450 represent 379, and 379 go with 1,200, right? You see this, I put in the same column. Let's go back in here. What is the x number here? So set up this way or this way is the same like equivalent ratio problem. All what you do is, if you set up this way, you can say x equal cross multiply 450 times 1,200 divide by 379. The same like this. If you set up horizontally like this, right? Then you do cross multiply, divide, right? Cross multiply, divide. So the x equal cross multiply, divide, cross multiply, divide. So this is cross multiply. Cross multiply, divide, cross multiply, divide. So x equal 450 times with 1,200 divided by 379. So you can set up this way or you can set up this way. You get the same answer. The reason I talk about this because using this setup will make you easy to solve in a word problem than if we set up this way. But it's the same, okay? This we call a ratio. So let's say 450 times with 1,200 and divide by 379. The answer for x is 1,400 to 4.80. That's how the answer works. And you can see in the big answer like this, you have to know the technique, which is cross multiply divide to get it. You cannot guessing what time with what equal the big number like that, right? Okay. So now I'm going to get into the word problem. Okay. So this is just the technique of solving the ratio, which is cross multiply and divide. Now, let's say if you have the problem, first problem is there are 32 students in a classroom. The ratio of boys to girls is 3 to 5. How many students are boys? How many students are boys? Okay. So given that question, apply the ratio like that, right? They ask you how many students are boys. Okay, so how we do this? To do this, you have to set up the ratio, right? So given total boy plus girl equal 32 student or people, right? Okay. And the ratio of boy to girl is 3 to 5. So we know this information. So now we have to set up the fraction, right? So when we set up the fraction, we can say, and the question asks for the boys, the amount of boys. So we can say that boy over girl will be equal 3 over 5. Will be equal B over another number. So if we set up two fraction equivalent, we need to have 3 numbers. So we have number 3 and number 5, and the only number we know is 32. So we can set up the 32 down here. However, if you look at if the portion, remember we're talking about the portion in fraction, 3 portion out 5 portion, right? So the 3 portion here represent the boy student, and the 5 portion here represent the girl student. But if we pair the 5 with 32, it's incorrect because the 32 here is the amount of both boy and girls, not just boy or not just girl. 32 is the total boys and girls. So if we put a 5 down here and we pair with this number to represent it, to make equivalent fraction, is incorrect. It's incorrect to say 3 over 5 equal boy over 32. But it will be correct if we add the ratio, because this is like a part to a whole ratio. If we add the total of boy and girl here equal 3 plus 5, which is 8, then instead of put number 5, we can put the number 8 down here, and that will be a correct ratio. The reason because the portion of boy is a 3 portion, and the portion of girls is 5 portion. It's not 5 portion, but we don't know how many girls. We know both boy and girl is 32. So this 32 have to represent the portion of both of them. And the portion of both of them is 3 at 5, which is 8. So if they give you the word problem like this, you have to know how to add them, 3 at 5, and to pair them. Okay, so this is how you set up. Now, let me talk about the horizontal setup. I think it's easy. It's easier. So you can say, okay, if the total student, right, if A portion represent 32 students, and if you set up horizontally, you should put a number, the name in there. And that's why it becomes easier to solve by horizontally instead of set up like this way. So we say, if we have A portion, right, the ratio is A portion, we add 3 at 5, we get A portion for both boys and girls, which is represent 32 students. And so 32 students, it represent A portion. So now we say, therefore, if 3 portion represent the amount of boy, B here, the question mark. So if you set up this way, it's a lot easier than set this way, okay? I don't like to set this way, even though in our school, we usually, you can see they put the fraction like that, but when I tutor students, a lot of confused. So if you learn this way, you can see it very clearly. You say, okay, A portion represent 32 students. Now, if we have 3 portion represent the boys, so how much is the boy? How many is the boy? So you do cross multiply divide, which is cross multiply divide, right? The arrow go this way, cross multiply divide. So the boy will be equal 3 times 32 cross multiply divide by 8. What it means is you have 32 students, you divide by A portion, and the 3 portion is the boy, so you multiply back with 3. And the answer here is 32 divided by A is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. So we know the B here, the boys here is 12 student boys. Okay, so I would strongly suggest you set up horizontally like that. But I have to explain to you it comes from ratio by equivalent ratio, and we solve this. Okay, so now let me be clear again. If you set up, you just read the word problem and you know that the total number is total portion is A portion. A portion represent 32, both boy and girl, right? So then if it's 3 portion, how many boys are there, right? So because you're talking about equivalent ratio, so you say 8 represent 32, then if it's 3, what represent? How many are there? The same like you say, if 20% is 32 students, then 100% is how many students? Something like that. But that is about the percent, which is, we passed that unit already. Now we back to ratio instead of percentage, okay? But that is how it works. So I'm going to end this problem here. Now we know the number of boys are 12 boys. We give you another, okay? And this is the last one. I'll give you a last word problem. Good, so the last word problem, let's say a bag contain 3 types of marble. 3 types of marble. A bag contains 3 types of marble: red, blue, and yellow. So there are 3 colors of marble, okay? If the ratio of red to blue. So R represent red, B represent blue, to yellow is 3 to 4 to 5. And there are 18 red marble. 18 red marbles. Then how many yellow marble are there? How many yellow marbles are there? Okay. So that is the problem. So let's take a look at it. It says a bag contains 3 tiles, red, blue, and yellow. The ratio for them is 3 to 4 to 5. And there are 18 red marbles. How many yellow marbles are there? So when you set up the fraction, equivalent fraction, or horizontally like the way I show you, and I prefer you set up horizontally, okay? It's easier to solve. Now, let's pick up any number we can put in the setup way of doing it, right? The question asks for yellow. It means you have in your fraction, you have to have a yellow in there, right? Because they ask for yellow. So this number 5 have to be in your equation. And how many red marble you have? 18. So this number 18 have to be counted in there as well. So 18 and 5 have to be in your setup proportionate equivalent fraction. And the 18 here go with the red because 18 red marble is 3 portions. So set up horizontally, very easy. You will say, okay, if we have 3 portions, right? That's number 3. Represent, so you have to know what number you pick up, okay? So you have to have a number 3 because that represents the red marbles and 18 marble and the number 5. So as long as you have 3 numbers, you can solve for the unknown one easily. So you will say 3 portion represent 18 marble. And you can write the word marbles right here, right beside, right? So 3 here is just the portion. It's not the number of marbles, right? 3 here is, it means out of the bag, there is 3 portions of the 18 marbles. And the 5 portion represent yellow. So the 5 here will represent the marble of yellow. But you don't know how many yellow marbles. This is the one unknown you want to find out. So this is, you say 3 represent 18, or you can say 3 red, right? 3 red represent 18 marble. Now you say 5 white represent how many number? And you can put an X in here, right? So if 3 red represent 18 marbles, 3 red represent 18. So 5 white, 5 for white represent how many X in here? How many marbles in here? The question mark you put in this column. So you have to know what number to put in the right column, right? So you can say 3 portions of red equivalent to 18 marbles, right, of red. So if it's 5 yellow, 5 portions of yellow equivalent to how many marble of yellow? X marble. So do cross multiply and divide. X will be equal 5 times 18 because we do cross multiply, divide, look at the arrow. I'm going to put in another color so you can see. So we do cross multiply, the black color here, or the blue color here, cross multiply, right? Look at the arrow, cross multiply, this time that, divide by this. Cross multiply, divide. So this is cross, right? Cross multiply. So x will be equal 5 times with 18 divided by 3. So x will be equal, 18 divided by 3 is 6. 6 times 5, 30. So 30 yellow marbles is the answer, which is easily, right? So when you set up proportionate ratio horizontally like this, it's a lot easier than you put in the fraction and you don't know what number you put on the top, what number you put in the bottom, what x is in what fraction, and you get confused, and therefore this ratio become very hard to, difficult to a lot of students because the confusing of setting up. But now I just show you, if you pair correctly, horizontally, you can say 3 red marble, right? 3 red, and let's use the color of red to represent 3 red. 3 portion of red give you or represent 18 red marble, right? So this column is for the number of marbles, and this column is for the number of portion, right? So a number of red marble have 3 portions. So you say 3 portion of red represent 18, then 5 portion of yellow. So 5 portion of yellow is how much? How many? And you can put an X in here as the fourth unknown number you don't know. So at Long Nhật, you have 3 numbers, and you want to find out the 4th one in equivalent ratio like this. You can find out using cross multiply, divide. So cross multiply, divide. 5 times 18 divided by 3. 5 times 18 divided by 3. That's all you have to do. And after that, you get the answer is the marbles of yellow is 30 of them. 30 yellow marbles. Okay, so we end the, and you can see this is the ratio 3 terms in 3-term ratio. So I taught you 2 word problem. One is 2 terms ratio and one is 3 terms ratio. I also show you the technical mathematic technique to solve in ratio problem by setting up horizontally like this to make it easy for you to solve any word problems. I hope you enjoyed my video, and I will end it up here. Okay, you know what, before I end it, let me summarize for you, okay? I just want to go slow and summarize so that you remember. So this is the 3 terms ratio, right? Say a bag contains 3 types of marbles, red, blue, and yellow. And given the ratio of red to blue to yellow, right? Red to blue to yellow is 3 to 4 to 5. 3 to 4 to 5. So it means 3 pair with red, 4 pair with blue, and 5 pair with yellow. Now the number 3 and 4 and 5 is just the portion, how you divide a box into 3 portions of red marbles and 4 portions of blue marble and 5 portions of yellow marble. It means, look at the ratio here, we can see that the number of yellow is the highest one, is the biggest number, because represented by number 5. The red marble is the lowest, the number of red marble is the lowest one. So if we have 18 red marbles, then we should have more yellow marbles than the red marbles, because the portion of 3 all count for 18, then the portion of 5 have to be more than 18, right? And we get 30 as the answer, so it should be logic. logical thinking is correct, okay? So let's say there are 18 red marbles. How many yellow marbles are there? So we set up the ratio. We know which number we're supposed to pick it up in here, in our setup, right, setting. We know that we're talking about the red marble is 18 of them, so the number 18 have to be in here. We know that number 3, we pick number 3 because the number 3 pair with number 18. We know we want to find out the yellow only. We don't need to care about blue marble because the question doesn't ask you. So even though they give you 3-term ratio, but you have to know which number you choose to pick it up accordingly, right? So if the question asks you yellow, then you pick up this number instead of this one in here because they don't ask you for blue. So you don't need to look at the middle one, right? Just ignore this one now and just focus in the red marbles and the yellow marbles. This have to go in here. So you set up this by saying, and set up horizontally is always easier, like I said. So I refer you to, I make the video before using the fraction, but I don't like it. I have to omit it and teach you using the horizontal, and it's a lot easier the way we do. So you will say if 3 portion, right, 3 red, and you can put a little r in there, represent red marbles, has 18 of them. And this is the actual amount of the marbles. So in this column, we're talking about the actual amounts. This column here is just about the portion, how many portions they are, right? So 3 red portion has 18 marbles in there. So if it is 5 yellow portion, then how many number of marble yellow, right? So to solve for this n or this x, okay, let me change x because I put x before. To solve for an unknown x here, you do cross multiply divide. And the cross multiply is represented by this arrow. There's only 2 numbers here. You can do cross, right? If you do like this, it's straight. It's not cross, right? So this is cross multiply. So arrow here is cross. So cross multiply, go back to divide, right? So x will be equal 5 cross multiply times 18 divided by 3. 8 times 5 times 18, 5 times 18 divided by 3. And you can calculate or I divide it in my head because it's easy. 18 divided by 3 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. So 30 yellow marbles is the answer in this problem. Okay, so I hope it's clear, and I hope you understand how to set up this ratio problem. So I'm going to end the video in here, and I think that I give you enough information for you to watch it and do your word problem. In the test or the quiz, I'm going to ask you. Okay, so bye for now.